Movement refers to how you move around a speaking area, like a stage or the front of a room. Effective movement is an excellent way to keep your audience interested in what you're saying, but the key thing to remember is that it must be purposeful. As Dale Carnegie says, when presenting, there are no neutral movements. Every movement that does not add to your presence distracts from it. You may have come across a speaker that paces aimlessly as they're speaking. It's distracting, right? The challenge is, purposeful movement is hard to do in the moment. So during rehearsal, imagine your speaking area and practice moving purposefully as you're delivering your message. Before I share some movement techniques, as a starting point, just remember to stand back far enough to include those at the outer edges of your audience. Now to the techniques. Firstly, when you're wanting to build momentum in your presentation, or if you're saying something particularly important, consider moving forward towards your audience. For example, and that's why we must take action. See how moving forwards amplifies the urgency of the message? Okay, so now you've found yourself up near your audience. Now what? If you stay up here, you're probably going to increase the cortisol levels of those sitting in the front row. So once your idea has concluded, neutralize by gradually moving back to the center. Next, you could also consider dividing the speaking area into however many key points you have. Then deliver each of your key points from a particular section. So, this would look like, starting with my first point, where we were last quarter. Yada, yada, yada. Moving on to my second point, where we are now. Yada, yada, yada. Let's finish with where we need to be in a quarter's time. 3 points delivered from 3 different areas. If you don't want to be that methodical about moving across the speaking area, just walk to any new spot at the beginning of a new idea. I saw a good example of this working with a client of mine. In this case, the key points of his presentation consisted of a series of questions and answers. He would start by walking as he introduced the next question. Then he provided the answer to that question planted in a particular spot. But again, it must be purposeful. Don't be apologetic about walking to a new spot. I often see people half-heartedly shuffle to a spot that's barely a foot from where they gave their last point. Be deliberate. Walk and plant. Walk and plant. The last point to mention about movement is start and finish in the same place. This should be at that central location where you can see your entire audience.